Rise of the Idiots. Welcome to the Film Threat Podcast. I am Chris Gore. I hope you're having a good day in what is one of the weirdest years ever, 2020. But let me tell you about a BBC TV series from 2005 that might have been very prophetic in terms of culture that's happening now and as we speak. To help me talk about this is Dahlia Schweitzer.
Hi, doll snatch.
You're quoting from Nathan Barley,
my new favorite TV show.
There's so many keep it foolish. There's so many quotable lines.
I know.
Amongst my friends back in the aughts, we would pass around this show, Nathan Barley, which is a BBC TV series show that was created by Charlie Brooker. You know the name Charlie Brooker because you know Black Mirror on Netflix. You also know this show, Dead Set, the zombie series that Dahlia and I spoke about previously. And when I mentioned to you, Nathan Barley, you hadn't heard of it. This is a show that I downloaded from the internet before I had the DVD of it. And I remember copying onto flash drives copies of Nathan Barley to give friends so they could watch it. I eventually got a gray market UK DVD of Nathan Barley that I lent to a friend, and I will don't lend your DVDs to friends.
No, never.
Justin Stanley, you still have my UK version of Nathan Barley. I want it back. Give it back to me.
Don't lend books either.
Yes, books I give away. Books I don't mind, actually, because if I have a book, it's on my shelf, I've read it.
But if you're giving it away, that's different. I'm saying don't lend a book if you want it back.
That's right. If you're giving it, I know it's gone. But this was a thing, it came out in 2005. I remember watching it on my Xbox 360 using a USB flash drive, which was weird. But this is a show that you had to know someone to know about it. And it's about this guy named Nathan Barley who has a website called trashbat.cock. Registered in the Cook Islands, oddly. And he
says it as often as possible to make sure you never forget.
Exactly. And he has before things existed called viral videos, he was posting weird viral videos. And Ben Whishaw, who's from he's been seen in many movies, but he's in the Daniel Craig 007 movies. He's in this, and he plays Pingu, this guy that Nathan Barley kind of experiments and does weird things with. The whole series is really about Nathan Barley's relationship with a writer named Dan Ashcroft, who writes an article called Rise of the Idiots for a magazine called Sugar Ape. And Rise of the Idiots is about moronic culture and hipsters, kind of like now. It's about really hipster and tech culture that's risen to the point where, all these tech devices, they're not making people smarter, they're making people dumber. And this show predicted in 2005. I'm not surprised seeing what Charlie Brooker has done with Black Mirror, where certain Black Mirror episodes are oh, that's now. That one with Dallas Bryce Howard, where she's seeking social media validation. That's that exists today in China. But the show, so Dan Ashcroft writes this article, Rise of the Idiots, and Nathan Barley reads it and doesn't realize it's about him.
Well, also because what is the context of Sugar Ape? It's not he's published this article in The Economist. He's published it in a magazine that is targeted at dumb hipsters because everybody who works there is a dumb hipster, right?
And everyone who reads the article, they're oh, this is so great because you're talking about those idiots. But they realize that it's not about them. It's about those other idiots that you're talking about, right?
The hopelessly uncool ones.
Yeah, exactly. I love the one guy is sort of it's the best thing I've ever read. And Dan Ashcroft said, what's the second best thing? And he says, Heidi. Remember?
I like it when Sugar Ape is talking about giving Nathan Barley a column. And then one of the Sugar Ape writers is what if we give him 2 columns? And then he goes with it. And he's because then you could have one column that's the good column and then one column that's the bad column. And Dan Ashcroft is but how would you tell which one's the good or the bad? And he's well, of course, you'd have to read both. But then you'd know which one was good. And then you'd only have to read the good one. And it's there's so many moments like that where you just watch Dan Ashcroft dying a little bit inside. that it's, and like, I don't know if you want to talk about the Sugar Ape logo, the redesign.
Sure, why not? Talk about the logo.
So it's Sugar, SUGA, R8, right? But then they come up with this like really edgy redesign where it's basically RAPE in really big letters, and then the SUGA is really small, and they're really delighted because it's going to make people mad, but then they're going to find out that they're mad for no reason because it's not actually saying anything offensive, and it's like they're just so delighted with themselves. And then you see every issue of the magazine that just basically says RAPE on it.
Well, I did relate a lot to the magazine meeting sessions, which was so fun. In that first episode, there's another great scene where they talk about how to play the game Cock Muff Bunghole, where it's basically rock paper, scissors. Oh my God. The show was so far ahead of its time. I'm just curious how I fell in love with this, like as a bootleg thing back in the day. You've recently discovered it. I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
A few days ago. Yeah. I only watched it because you told me I had to. I'm not sure that I would have motivated to stick it through if you hadn't. I watched the first episode and then I had to take a break because it really kind of like it's funny, but it's also, it's funny because it's true, and there's only so much truth you can handle. And right now we're in this sort of like 2020 dystopia where everyone's keeping it foolish without seeming to get the parody of that. So I kind of had to take a break and was like, and it reminded me of a lot of people that I've met, like Nathan. When I lived in Berlin, there are a lot of Nathans running around with like dried paint in their hair and like little objects and stuff like that. And so it's kind of like Portlandia, but about hipsters. And I live in New York, where obviously they're hipsters. So it's just, sometimes it hits a little too close to home and then you kind of need to take a break. And then I could come back to it. But there are moments that are priceless, like when Nathan is rapping in the nightclub. And it's like, I think I was in that club in London, and that's whatever it is that he's rapping, and he's rapping about like George Bush and the axis of diesel. And it's actually really brilliant. And I wish that track was on Spotify. So there are moments where it's just like, it's so funny that it's just genius.
Wait a sec. How do we know it's not on Spotify? It could be. It could very well be.
Even though it's from 2005?
I who knows? I mean, it could be. It's funny because Charlie Brooker also wrote a book, which is a collection of essays called Dawn of the Dumb, which I kind of feel like is a lot like, I feel like Charlie Brooker really is Dan Ashcroft more than anything. But there's so many great like scenes between Nathan Barley, this idiot basically, with this website trashbat.cock, which oddly enough, I discovered that you can only get .co.ck registered in the Cook Islands. And at the time, Mark Bell, who used to run Film Threat, he lived in New Zealand and he went to the Cook Islands and he specifically registered filmthreat.cock, which is .co.ck, which is supposed to stand for the Cook Islands. So I don't know if that's true, that you can only do that actually physically there. You can't do it online. I'm sure a quick internet search would solve that problem. But
don't you have people for that?
Yes, I also have my fingers. I can talk about that as well. But this show really, like, having rewatched it, really holds up. The stuff with Nathan and Dan Ashcroft, I think, are my favorite. The scene where Dan Ashcroft is just ordering coffee, and you see like these, because it reminds me a lot of like living in LA, and when there's like just these hipsters that like it's the hive mind of, they all have the same ideas.
They're all doing a cleanse, like a grapefruit juice cleanse.
Exactly. Like they're just parroting the same ideas. Everything is yoga and this, and a baby, a yoga mat for your baby, or just like, it's just like LA is where dumb trends go to blow up and then be adopted by hipsters all over the United States. It's horrifying. But Dan Ashcroft goes to order coffee, and he orders a coffee and notices that Nathan Barley is just copying everything he's ordering. Then he says black, no sugar. And then, okay, how about...
Because Nathan's originally ordering a cappuccino.
Right.
Here's what Dan Ashcroft is ordering, and he changes his order. And so, so he's mimicking every step of the way.
Every step of the way, he's just changing his order. He's changing. And then he finally is just like, and put salmon in my coffee. Which when I hear like things of like, putting butter in your coffee is now a thing, like I guess it's dairy and that makes sense. I don't know. I'm not a foodie, so my taste is very pedestrian.
Do you actually live in LA?
What's that?
Do you actually live in LA?
Oh, no, I'm in Pasadena. I'm
joking.
I've lived in LA with the exception of since 2012, 2013. I moved to Pasadena.
But coffee with butter, there's like a name for it. It has some like trendy name.
Yes, I wouldn't know what the name is. But this show just totally encapsulates like what makes this culture just so cringe and annoying. And I think that's what I find so endearing. And the fact that it holds up, having rewatched it and having seen it,
and maybe better now.
It may be better now because I feel like it was way ahead of its time. Like, I don't know that people got it in 2005 when it first came out. Like, it was too weird maybe and too far ahead. Like, that's too weird. Technology's not going to make people dumber, is it? And welcome to 2020 when we live in an age of social media where people are complete idiots. So,
but also like the hipster haircuts. Like
right.
That was one of my favorite scenes where Nathan takes a nap and he accidentally sleeps on some paint. And then he's got like dried, crusty paint in his hair. And Nathan sees it and thinks it's on purpose. So then
Dan Ashcroft sleeps in the paint. And then
yeah. And then Nathan goes and gets like paint in his hair so that he can look like Dan Ashcroft. And then these like Japanese tourists see him and they take pictures of Nathan's hair. And then it becomes like really like a super trend in Japan. And it's like Nathan at first has this moment of embarrassment when he finds out that Dan Ashcroft didn't do it on purpose, which is really uncharacteristic because Nathan's like never embarrassed by anything. And I was kind of surprised that Nathan becomes embarrassed and doesn't just like own it. Like he puts a bag on his head and he's like trying to hide his hair, and it's just like, just embrace it, man.
Yeah, it's really a classic show. And what's weird is that it's all on YouTube. So we're recommending something, whether you're watching this on YouTube or listening, to the Film Thread podcast. You can see this on YouTube, the entire series. Some person just decided to put it on there. And there's a lot of great clips also from Nathan Barley. So I know I'm not alone in my love for this show. So Dahlia, I want to thank you for being on the Film Thread podcast. Yet again, you and I having, fun conversations about movies.
And using expressions like monkey muff.
Monkey muff, exactly. And I also want to thank our sponsor, Storyblocks. Go to storyblocks.com/filmthread. Deals for filmmakers, tools for filmmakers that I think that you will really enjoy. It'll help you out. Dahlia, thanks again for being on the Film Thread podcast.
Thank you.